As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture those stories of why we all hustle and grind for our company. Michael Buzinski, or Buzz as we all call him, is a serial entrepreneur, digital marketing thought leader, international speaker, best-selling author, host of a top 1% podcast called the Buzzworthy Marketing Show, and a decorated U.S. Air Force veteran. Buzz has built several small businesses, 2 multi-million-dollar ventures, and marketed for over 1,200 companies. Dubbed a marketing visionary by the American Marketing Association, Buzz is on a mission to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty by simplifying the digital marketing strategy process with his unique profit-driven frameworks like the Rule of 26, which is a best-selling book, digital engagement optimization, and the social media blueprint for business management and fractional firms. His revolutionary approaches help business owners avoid the time drain and frustration of managing profitable digital marketing campaigns. Buzz's passion is sparked by his own 15-year struggle with entrepreneurial poverty. He's now on a mission to help other fractional and consulting firms avoid the same tribulations he struggled through. So, Buzz, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really, really appreciate you being here, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Andrew.
Cool. So I know one of the first things I wanted to start off with, what's your secret sauce? Like, what do you do? What's that thing that really gets you going?
Well, we call it the superpower, right? Like when I work with clients and we're always trying to uncover that thing. That what's the thing that people come to you and that's what you do really well. Always. Like it's a switch. You can turn it on at any given time. And mine's the 3 S's. I have the ability and I do marketing. And I have the ability to synthesize how people do business, simplify what they offer their target audience, and then systemize their message in a way that makes it very easy for them to sell it.
So how did you get started with that? I mean, we all have this origin story of, it was that one thing, for me, it was a really bad FDA compliance training that I said, I never want to do this again. It was awful. And so what got you started in this one little space? Like, what was that origin story for you?
God, man, my origin story is like a saga in itself. You ever watch like Lord of the Rings? And then they had like the Hobbits before that. Well, there was like also like another 10 years of research before the Hobbits that happened, right? Because he created all the, all of the Tolkien created all of the languages of the elves and all that other stuff. That's my origin story. It's ridiculous. It took me, I mean, I'm 50 this year. And I tell you, I mean, I didn't even really get truly started on what I do now until I would say about 10 years ago. And I've ran up a couple of corporate ladders. I've been in the Air Force for 10 years. In the meantime, I ran a recording studio. I've been minority owner of a minor league indoor football team. I mean, I have done so much crap to get me here. So the origin story is a saga upon itself. I will tell you this. I have always, when I was in my teen years, I didn't want to play in the fast food game. I had one fast food job and that was it. It was at Burger King. I was 13 and a half. That's all you could get as a job. My parents had just got divorced and I moved my dad into the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And he's like, I'll put food on your plate. I'll put a roof over your head. I'll put clothes on your back. You need anything else though, you're going to have to go get a job.
Yeah.
Fair enough, Dad. And so at 13 and a half is exactly the youngest age you can get a work permit this is back in the 80s, late 80s. I'm dating myself. And for $3 and what was it? $3.65 an hour. I flip burgers, man.
I remember the days when $5 was a big thing.
Yeah, right. Like you make $5 an hour, so like back then. So for me, like it was a good job, but I burnt out in about, I want to say I only worked there for maybe 4 or 5 months before I'm like, I need to do something else, but I was still too young to do anything else. So I went into like pizza because it was still food, but it wasn't quite there. So anyway, long story short is I got into sales and marketing as fast as I can because you could get into sales as young as 16. So by the time I was 16, I was done with food. And when I got into sales, I ended up just being innately good at it. Right.
Mm.
I'm a people person. I am, they call it highly intelligent. So it makes me, it gives me the ability to think quickly in a conversation. I'm a problem solver. So in sales, if you can solve people's problems, you're going to have sales, those types of things. Right. So in that, the creativity side of me came into that. And I kept getting dragged into the marketing of things. And then I ran up a couple of corporate ladders and hit some glass ceilings back in the day when you couldn't be in marketing you couldn't get too far into a big corporation without a degree.
Yeah.
And so by the time I was 21, I'd actually ran up 3 ladders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that. And they're like, well, you need a 4-year degree. I'm like, I don't want to sit here and rot on the vine for 4 years, struggle through college. I watched my parents go through it when I was a little kid. They both went through their bachelor's. We lived on a farm. They both worked full time and they went to school. You think we had a lot of family trips? No. So wasn't my idea of a good time.
My mother did the same thing too. She was getting her master's and her PhD in psychology while having 2 kids. And we were like, about when she graduated, I think I was 6, my brother was 4. I don't know how the hell she did it.
Yeah, just not a lot of family trips,
Yeah, no.
But yeah, it's but that, it is what it is. And my dad did his master's degree while in my high school years. So so we didn't do a lot of things then either, and he looks back on that and he knows that could have been better. I was a latchkey kid, but a lot of us were like, well, in my demographic, there were a lot of us that were that way. Exactly. And so it was just a bunch of us with skateboards and keys around our necks and just be home by dark, right?
Before the street lights go on. Yep.
Yeah. So I joined the Air Force actually to get out of the corporate grind and away from corporate politics. I was a big thing of like corporations, big corporations, just they weren't playing the way I wanted to play, right? Like I didn't like all of that. And so I joined the service thinking, oh, there's regulations. And both my parents were in the Air Force. My grandfather was in the Air Corps in World War II. We just had a lineage of the Army, Air Corps, and Air Force. So it's like, okay, cool. I'll get away from politics, whole 9 yards. And then I get in there and it's just all politics. It's like worse, but for 10 years, it allowed me to play, pretend that I was a rock star, because I had a band and that was one of the things that I did very young is I was a professional jazz trombonist. And then I turned into a guitar player and I wanted to become a rock star. Ended up I wasn't tall enough, dark enough, good looking enough, or talented enough to be one of those. So by the time I got done with 10 years in the military, I got out and I started a recording studio. And my whole thing was I had a really bad experience with a recording studio in Oklahoma when our band was recording their demo. And I was like, that sucks. And that shouldn't be the way it is. And so I'm like, I'm going to change how recording studios. And so I basically built a learning recording studio so people could come in and learn what it means to be a recording artist. Cause I'd have guys come in and the drummer can't play to a metronome, right? Like the little tink, 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 you can't play to this thing. I'm like, what is that? All right.
It's like a chef not being able to use a pan. I mean, you
got to go home and practice that. A year into that, I realized I did $72,000 in sales my first year. And I brought home $22,000 of that to live off of in Anchorage, Alaska, which is not cheap to live. So I quickly realized that surviving off of starving musicians was a horrible business plan. So then I went, so we did media production was something I was really good at. I did it for my bands. I did graphic design and web development, all these other things. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I will start doing this for small business. I looked around and I'm like, who needs this? Who needs it badly? And who can't afford to get the big firms to do that? And so I looked right down the street and I'm like, all of these small businesses need my help. And that's literally how we got started. I had a homeless guy that I had employed. He helped me paint the place. Like I built the whole place on like by hand. I didn't have a lot of money. I had just gotten a divorce. So anyway, and so he went through the phone book and just called people and said, hey, who does your business cards? Who prints your business cards? And then we had just partnered with Vistaprint. They had just started color business cards and they had a reseller program. So I'm like, oh, cool. Then I can just resell these and at the same price as single color business cards. Right. And so he would get them excited about it. I'd show up with my little portfolio. I would then show them and they're like, yes, I want this. Awesome. All right, great. Can I have the files? Well, we don't have full color files. Of course you don't. Then let me do the graphic design for you. And then that builds it there. Fast forward 13 years later, and I had created a multi-million-dollar creative agency.
Nice. Awesome.
And in 2018, I shut it all down.
Mm.
I was completely miserable. I had a $14,000 mortgage payment on a 13,000 square foot facility, 22 employees that I had to babysit, the whole 9 yards. It was like, it was the best of times and the worst of times. It was like, type of thing. And so for the last 5 years, I've gotten really honest with myself of like, who do I really feel can make a difference in the SMB arena? And business consultants like myself are the ones. We're the unsung heroes. We're the secret sauce behind the great leaders out there. We're the ones that ground, CEOs of, unicorn startups. We're the ones who, take a first generation company into a second generation company. We're the ones that grow things into exitable companies. That's us. Like, we're the ones that help these leaders do that by being great leaders to leaders, right? And so that's now been kind of my calling, is like, I'm going to work with other leaders, thought leaders, technically, in helping market what they have to offer. Because guess what? They all have visibility crisis. They have a focus crisis, right? And they have an identity crisis. And that for marketing is like just the worst you can have, is having any of those three. But a lot of us have all three of them. And so that's my calling.
Yeah. And it's one of the things as business owners, we get into our world, we're experts in our fields, but sometimes trying to explain it to somebody else is different. I had one client of mine, and I was talking to him one day, and he was totally frustrated. He's like, why aren't people getting this? And I told him, it's because, look, you can go from point A to point F in one jump, but people need B, C, D, and E. And sometimes we get so into our lanes, we don't know that.
Well, it's that meme that you see where there's two guys at the foot of two ladders. One has a bunch of little rungs, and then one has huge rungs.
Yeah.
Right. And when we get really good at what we do, we feel like we can just keep climbing the large rung. We don't have to sit and hit every rung. We can skip rungs, right? And then we find out that halfway through, we're tired. Yeah. Because we've been jumping when we could have just walked.
Yes. Yeah. And as a trainer, I mean, that was one of the things, or as somebody in the learning industry, that was one of the things that we really had to be very cognizant of, is this, you're an expert. Let's get the rungs smaller. Let's see what we can do. Let's learn on
for our clients too, though, because we're, like you said, I think you illustrated really great. It's like, you see, step A to F, and that's like, well, that's beginning and end. And for you, that's all one thing, because it's just one phase of what you see long-term. But the client needs to see a B and C and D, and sometimes C and a half and D and a quarter.
Yep. Yeah. It's like try to teach somebody how to tie their shoes. It's the perfect example that just about everyone understands. Is just try to teach it. It's really difficult.
It does,
because we're so used to it. We do it so often, right?
Writing books for me has helped me understand how to better describe things, because my books are how-to books. Yeah. Right. How to better market yourself, how to market easier, not harder, those types of things. And it's like, how do I describe how to do this?
Exactly.
And you realize all the rungs that you've been skipping over really quick.
And then you pass it off to somebody who's like, you're check and balance, somebody to look it over that doesn't know what they're doing. And they're like, how the hell did you get here?
Yeah, exactly.
You find 5 more gaps, right?
Right. Well, I think that we take it advantage, as experts, we take it for granted that everybody knows it because it's all out there. Right. We just, I have a nephew who is like 24. I just introduced him to ChatGPT. I was like, how does a Gen Zer, or is that Gen Alpha? Can't remember. So, he's a Gen Zer. He's a young Gen Zer. So how is it that a Gen Zer doesn't know what ChatGPT is yet? Yeah. AI. I'm like, he was calling me for career advice. And I'm like, that's just awesome. This is great. We went through the whole process, and then I'm like, so have you talked to ChatGPT yet? He's like, what's that? I'm like, what do you mean, what's that? Like, doesn't everybody know this? And I think that we do that with our own businesses. Like, well, everybody's just using the internet to get shortcuts and not hire us, right? The only reason they come to us is because they've exhausted Google and now ChatGPT to the point where they're like, okay, I understand that all this is out there, but how do you use it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you bring up a really good point there. And it's a service that I have as well is, writing keynotes is not something that's new. There's a lot of bigger names out there that do this. For me, and yes, you can have ChatGPT do it. I mean, that's, it is what it is. But for me, it's also been, it's a situation where I am the one with kind of the expertise that can help you walk through the process. Or it's like the old adage, if you bring your entire shoebox full of receipts to your accountant and say, here, you figure it out. I can do it myself. I'd really rather because I hate it.
But I think that people forget, like, so the people who do know about ChatGPT, they know, like, you can be sold that AI can do it for you. There's a bunch of stuff out there that say it'll do it for you. Yeah. But really, AI isn't done with you, right? Yeah. AI is only your research tool and ideation tool. Mm-hmm. Nobody is going to write your keynote outlines, your keynote bios, all of the things that go into being a keynote, because except for a human, and you have to be the person putting in all the inputs because it's you we're selling. Yeah. Right. ChatGPT doesn't. I mean, you can give it all the things, right? Here's a book I wrote, and here's all my social media and all these stuff. And you can give it all of that stuff, and they'll get it close, maybe 70, 80% of the way there. You need an expert to take you to that other 20% because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And in my next book, I'm showing people how to use ChatGPT for ideation, how to use ChatGPT to create outlines of subsets of topics you're using. These are things that, we think they're easy. Yeah. But I just found out that a 24-year-old doesn't even know.
Exactly, right? And one of the things I'm finding, especially with ChatGPT, because I do use it as well for my business as well, it makes it easier if you have that brain lock day where you're just not quite getting it, you need a nudge. It's really good for that. But I'm finding that it falls short. It doesn't have a human aspect to it. It's good. I mean, it's a pretty good output, but I think it's deceptively good. Like you think that it's something finalized, you think that's there, but I've caught it making errors and little bits and pieces. And yeah.
And I think that if you've been in your craft for any amount of time, you read it, you see the holes in it, you see the framework in which it pulled all the information that you can glean off of the internet, because that's all it's doing. It's just scraping information in nanoseconds and then spitting out something in a new way. It's trying to do a new way, but once you've worked with ChatGPT for a while, you can start seeing and reading it outside of ChatGPT. You can start seeing, oh, yeah, they used AI for that. Yep, they use AI for that. They use AI for that.
Yep, it's not hard.
No, it's not. But for the people who don't, but now you have people out there who are like, here, use my software that can write a book in like 15 minutes. You just put in these couple of prompts of like what you wanted to talk about and what your topic. You know what? I've been testing so many AI tools over the last 4 months, right? At the beginning of 2008, I'm like, I need to figure out what's actually real, usable, tools that we can use, right? And I have tested at least 36 AI platforms in the marketing realm alone. Right. There's thousands of them out there, but just marketing, I stay in my lane. And,
that's always a good idea.
And the last one, and I'll literally buy them because I'm like, in my podcast, this whole season's about AI and like what works, what doesn't. And guess what? 99% of what we're being sold that AI can do doesn't work. These people they're basically putting a nice package around ChatGPT or Claude or Bard, whatever their engine is, and then they're hoping that the prompts that they created, or GPTs, if you will, like little mini bots that are just doing one thing, and then you can put it in there, it'll work. Yeah. But if you're a business consultant, if you're an expert in any type of consulting, your how-tos do not translate because how you're doing it isn't already out there. Everybody has a new way of approaching what they do. Yeah. That's why coaches and consultants and fractionals will always have a job. Yeah. Because we all bring a unique perspective to many of the same problems that we're all solving.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize the T in GPT stands for transformer. All it does is just rearrange information it gets. And understanding that, and even though it's very good at what it does, it's probably the best that I've seen in quite a while because I've studied quite a bit of AI. Like you, I've had more jobs than Liz Taylor's had husbands.
I like that.
I was a
I'm gonna
GM
have
for
to
a
use that one.
restaurant. I was a programmer. I've done, I tried to start a video production company. I've done a whole bunch of stuff. Um,
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna borrow that, by the way, just so you know. I'm stealing that.
You're more than welcome to. You're more than welcome. Until I get it trademarked.
You better get the wait. I'm gonna go get the URL real quick.
But I think that these tools are great tools. They're great to use. They really help us to do our jobs. But again, they're not the end all and be all. And I think the day that I saw somebody who was completely in an industry that would not really be helped with AI, was selling AI courses, was the day it was like, no, we're fine. Yeah, this is gonna just bomb. It's not gonna. Yeah.
Well, I will tell your listening audience that I went and spent $1,500 on a program that was supposed to be able to write a book. Now, I knew it wasn't going to write me a book in 15 minutes. But I figured maybe 3 days. Like it would just, speed things up. Like I can put all of because I have a lot of content. I've been building content for the last 18, 19 years now, right? So I can pull a lot of stuff in and just like give it all. And then it can transform my stuff for me, right? No, I'm too now. We were talking in the green room. I am now 80% of the way there. It's been 3 weeks since I started this project. And it's turned from a 60-page book into probably another 150-page book. It doesn't work. Doesn't matter how much you spend. It doesn't matter what they promise you. It's good for the short stuff, like an email marketing. It is actually pretty damn good. And that's because it can scrape Google.
Yeah.
Right. And what is Google? It's got Gmail, and there's a lot of stuff out there that are, they're in depositories and stuff like that. So you've got all of that. And it's short form, super short form. But if it gets past a couple of paragraphs, it starts to hallucinate. It starts to just formulate, and you can just see it trying to just trying to spit stuff out. So it's there.
Yeah.
Give me a 500. If you asked to do a 500-word blog, I cringed yesterday. I was on the phone with a client, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I've got my SEO figured out because we're just doing blogs. I'm having ChatGPT right now." I'm like, in my brain, I just like, no,
that's not going to go well.
You don't have this figured out, because nothing that you write with ChatGPT or Claude or Bard or any of those that's like, and you just have it write it and then put it out there. I mean, just read it. You're going to spend at least 20 minutes editing it, because it uses words like akin. Who the hell uses the word akin?
Right.
Furthermore, in conclusion, all of the ChatGPT keywords, right?
Well, and I think
anyway, experts. So I'm on a mission. Like I have a couple dollars that I can invest and like give the good, the bad, and ugly of it. So I've been sitting there going, all right, if you run across bookle.ai, what's it, Trey? I can't remember his last name, but if you hear a guy named Trey and he's selling his autofunnel.ai with bookle.ai, autofunnel probably looks okay. I haven't tested that part yet, but the Bookle side, not so much.
No. Well, because the other thing too is, as experts, we're really good at being able to take people's information. We've done it before. We know what's going on. I saw a meme the other day that said to replace programmers with robots or AI, clients would have to accurately describe what they want. We're safe.
And you don't know what you don't know, even though you could ask AI, hey, what do you know? What do you have to ask me? What questions do I have to answer? I should say, what questions do I have to answer that you need to make this happen? Right? That's a super simple prompt, right? Just saying that. You could easily do that. But then it's going to ask you questions you don't know the answers to.
Yeah.
Like, and you think you know the answers, and you're going to guess at those answers, and then it's poop in, poop out.
Yep. Yep. Only as good as your prompts. Yeah.
And then this whole prompt engineering. Okay, everyone, stop buying prompt engineering. It is not a thing. Just talk to the dang AI in plain English. And when it does, and it's just like a toddler. It's the most intelligent toddler. It just basically, it knows everything the internet knows. but it has absolutely zero context of how the world works.
It's like Stewie
Just
from
like a
Family Guy
toddler.
without all the snark.
Basically. Yeah, exactly. Yes. And so people just need to stop spending the $99 for the 10,000 prompts. I'm like, you're not even going to read through the 10,000 prompts to find the prompt you want. And then when you use that prompt, guess what? You're going to still have to reiterate to them, to ChatGPT or Bard or whatever you're using. And you're going to have to tell AI, okay, I don't want it this way. And please stop using these words, you know, you have to train it just like a toddler, right? You were talking about the tying the shoes. Can you please tie me a knot?
Yeah.
And it ties you a, I meant a bow knot. Okay. Not a double bow knot. And can I, you just got to keep like getting really specific about the type of knot, how you want the knot. Oh, that bow knot is for a tennis shoe, not a boot, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome. So, I want to just really quickly go back to something because I was having a discussion about this with a good friend of mine last night, and how we're kind of in the same situations with the marketing company that you had that you basically run down. And there's a lot of us that are in that situation where it's like, what is your job title? Yes, all the things.
At that time, I actually was
miserable.
CEO, and I said I would never be a CEO again. And now here I am, a CEO again. But anyway, go ahead.
Exactly. Well, there you go. Exactly right. But one of the things, what was your experience, and what would you tell somebody that was in that situation, and how would you help them? Like, what sort of a piece of little wisdom could you get to kind of nudge them in a direction, saying, "This is what I did wrong. If I had to do it again, here's what I would do."
Okay. The precursor to that answer is the first thing you need to do is stop wearing all the hats. Like you started with the wrong situation, right? If you're sitting there saying you're doing all the things, you own a job.
Yeah.
Not running a scalable, growable, sellable business, period, end of story. You got to get yourself down to one, maybe two titles. And those titles have to be something you can hire out and have somebody else do in your stead, because otherwise you don't have a sellable business. You don't have a marketable business. Okay. As a business, like if you're trying to exit, okay. If you want to just lifestyle, that's fine. Okay. You do you. Because I've met people like, I want 5 clients and I want to work 4 days a week and whatever. Yeah, fine. That's you.
Cool.
If you're an entrepreneur, you're building something bigger than yourself. Okay. So with that said, if you're struggling with that, read Michael Gerber's E-Myth.
Okay.
Right. That's a huge, but that started me down the path of entrepreneurship. That's that right there. If you can just do that, you're in really good shape. Okay. So once you've done that, then the piece of wisdom that I can give you from my experience of having a multi-million-dollar company that I could probably still have today, barring probably what would have happened during COVID had I not closed a year before, close that down, because I had a brick and mortar 13,000 square foot facility, a whole 9 yards, right?
Yeah.
But from that was that I was growing for growth's sake, meaning I wasn't focused on profit. So I had a multi-million-dollar micro enterprise, in Anchorage, Alaska. Is gorgeous. Had a little corner office. I could see all the mountains. It was beautiful, right? I was living the dream. I was having colleagues tell me, Buzz, you've made it. It's amazing. What's your secret to success? And I'm sitting there going, cool, I've made it. Let me tell you my secret to success. Like, I know, right? No, I didn't. I still don't. Nobody does. It's hard work. It's the grind. It's the name of this show. It's all the grind. There is no secret to success, but there are secrets to alleviating a lot of pain. And if I had thought of, if somebody had told me this right here 10 years ago, you and me might not have ever met, because I'd probably still be in Anchorage doing something different, because my journey would have went in a different direction. Growth for growth's sake is the equation to burnout and bankruptcy. If you're going to grow, you must grow profitably. That's the small. That right there, if you just focused on that, and then everything you did was around profitability, man, I wish I would have known. I thought it was, you just keep growing until a point where you actually accumulate. I wasn't even paying myself 6 figures. Yeah. When my company was doing $2.5 million. Yeah. 6 figures. I wasn't even paying myself 6 figures. My
Exactly.
profit and my profit that we could put back into the company was like at 3.5, maybe 4%, which was completely wiped away by over leverage and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So we were talking earlier about profit first. That's a great way to start. If you could just do your accounting that way and then start spending money with profit first in mind, you won't outgrow your profit because it's not allowed in that system. And you will get creative with how you invest your money with the money that you have left after your profit.
And I think once you think about that, you think about it that way, and it changed my life when I first saw that as well. So I think it's a really powerful thing. Yeah.
I wish I would have saw that book 3, maybe 4 years before I found it. I found it right after I reinvented how I did business. And I went to college at some point. I know I told you guys I didn't want to go to college, but I ended up going to college because the military gave me time to do it. Right. So, anyway, but I got a C in corporate finance. Like I sucked I did not understand corporate money. Right.
Yeah.
And I kept trying to understand that in a small business that your small business should have corporate minded finances. And it's not until you get into the 8 figures. Simple QuickBooks and profit first. Done. Like I spent thousands of dollars trying to be more sophisticated than we ever needed to be, thinking I was going to get like super cool insights in my money and how we could leverage and go sell your stuff at a profitable rate and deliver what you promise.
Yeah.
That's it.
So I have a business degree too. It's just I just wanted to finish and just be done with it. And taking all the accounting, I don't really use a lot of it either because it's like, it's great. Your business processes are negative, but in a fabulous spreadsheet. It's like, come on. It's not.
If you could just use your EBITDA.
Exactly, my EBITDA. Exactly right. When your EBITDA is negative, maybe I could put it in a nice font, but that's not really help.
I remember when I went to buy my first house after I got my divorce, and it was probably about 5 years into, maybe 6 years into business. And the mortgage company is like, well, you've been showing a loss on your company. I was like, yeah, it's called tax strategy.
Yeah, exactly. To keep my unintentional business partner, Uncle Sam, out of it, right?
I have my profitability and I have the IRS's profitability. Which one would you like to see? And this is before they had like bank statement only loans for entrepreneurs and stuff like that. So it was like, so you're telling me I got to pay taxes for 2.5, 3 years before you'll give me a loan, even though I have all the money in the bank that you need me to have to. I was so mad. I was like, so profit first was like the simplifying, and I've actually become friends with Mike. And he's got a few books that I've used, and I've helped him with some market research on some of his new books and stuff like that. So like if you're looking for an author that talks about a lot of different things, he's a great one there. And then if you want to check out my book, because it's all about using digital marketing in a profitable way, which is the Rule of 26. We didn't get to talk to you today, but that one's at ruleof26.com. I'm actually giving that book away for free.
Cool. Awesome. I'll make sure we get that in the comments for you so that way people know what it is. Yeah. Awesome. Well, usually my last question is, what's one book that changed your life or one podcast that changed your life? But I think we've been through 3 or 4 at this point.
Well, if you want to go like life. Whew. My first book, my first nonfiction, like self-help book was Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yep.
That changed my life.
Same here.
The most recent one is, man, I'm going to say it wrong. It's like EQ. It's emotional intelligence 4.0 or 2.0. That one right there. If you can learn emotional intelligence, hone in emotional intelligence, that's a game changer.
Especially as entrepreneurs, we need such a high level of emotional intelligence because what we deal with is just, it's the suck. We deal with so much every day. It's a really good
that book right there. I mean, and I suck at it. I've got all of the passion bloodlines in my genes. I've
Scottish,
got
Italian,
Sicilian, Polish, Irish. It's really bad.
My melting pot's a powder keg.
Exactly. It's amazing that I didn't get end up in the AA meetings and stuff like that. Because I have all the genetics to do it.
I have a friend of mine, and it's funny. His older brother gave him some amazing advice, and the advice was, you need to do one of two things: either shut your mouth or build more muscle.
Yes. And so I'm actually reading a book right now, and it's called Emotional Intelligence in Sales. And having to deal with so if once you get into that emotional intelligence where you're able to handle your emotions better, but then in sales, there's a lot of what they call emotional disruptors in the sales process. Now, as entrepreneurs, we're usually our best salespeople, right?
Yeah.
But we never think about honing our sales as a craft until we can then systemize it and then hand it off to somebody else who will do it about 80% as good as you.
That's the thing. Yeah. Is handing it off and understanding it's going to be 80% as good as you are, and I think I've seen so many people struggle with that.
Yeah. And so with anything in your business, everything will be at best 80% as good as you.
Yeah.
Even your partners will do it 80% as good as you.
Yeah. I told a friend of mine years ago, I'm like, look, you are the one that loves your business better than anyone else. There is no one else that will have that passion for your business, because that's how it should be. And I think a lot of times we forget that.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other side of that coin, though, is the reason we're so good at it is because we have kept everything in our noggin. We have not documented enough of our brain onto paper, whether that be virtually or physically, so that other people can then reference. And I'm telling you right now that it's going to come up here really soon. They already have some platforms where you can data dump everything into an AI bot that only looks at what you have in that bucket. And once I find it, I'm going to use it for my team, because then what you can do is you can dump all this stuff in. You could literally just sit there and talk through something on a video or an audio file, dump it in there, and then it can be the FAQ tank for anybody in your business. Yeah. Hey, Buzz's AI, what would you do if what should I do if we're doing blah, 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 blah? It's going to spit back only content that's coming from my brain that I put in there. And now you can get questions like you're talking to me at split second. You don't have to track me down. You don't have to disrupt me. If I'm on the road, you don't have to wait for me, those types of things. And it takes you out of that bottleneck.
And I think it gets those little questions, the ones that you're asked 1,000 times a day, that are really just noise. They need to be answered. You need to be there for your staff, but it's also, they're just noise. And it gets those little things so you can answer the really big questions that really are the creative ones that really actually need to be answered by you. And that's which sounds good.
I know we got to get going, because we can probably do this for another 2 hours. But
we'll talk forever.
One last thing. If you did that, because you can do that, you can actually have it to where Bard, I think, or Claude can segment a chat, right? And you could dump everything into that. The thing is this: if you start giving it your troubleshooting process in your brain, how you think, well, I would start here and I do this then, and right? Then you can get not just the FAQs, you can start getting strategic cues from that AI bot. How should I approach this scenario? This is my objective. This is my objective. This is my goal. And this is where I'm at right now. And these are the variables I have to take into account. Right. And it's coming from you. Now they get a little peek inside here, because the more they understand how you work, the better they're going to work for you.
Yeah. Well, Buzz, thank you so much for being on. I really deeply appreciate it. This has been an awesome chat. I always love talking to you, man.
So I love it, man. No, we're kind of two peas in a pod, so I think that's bald, bearded.
I gotta shut it off because we can go on for about another 3 hours. It would be like an epic thing, and like a friend of mine said, enough to work out too. So hopefully you listeners are all done with your workout. You're all good. You had a good burn going on.
We're probably into their stretch, their yoga, and maybe their post-workout nap. I don't know, but
who knows? Exactly. They're doing the creatine right now. So alrighty, folks. Thank you again so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Buzz, including a link to download his book, The Rule of 26, check out the links in the description.